Welcome everyone to the Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework Biweekly Sync. I'm your host this week, Beau Cameron. We have a pretty awesome agenda today. Once the slides move here, there we go. Awesome. We have the latest updates on SharePoint Framework. We're going to do updates on the community projects. As always, we will have picture time, so make sure you get your hairdo all set. And then we have some awesome demos with Daniel Turley, who's going to continue to wow. Continue to wow us with his Accelerator services framework. We have Rishabh Shukla, who is a first-time presenter who will be demoing off a Invoice Generator web part. And lastly, we have a returner, Ejaz Hussain, who's going to build an SPFx solution to manage your Azure DevOps projects. As always, let's make sure that all presenters feel welcome, especially those who are doing it for their first time. All right, so we have a lot of, oh my God, I keep scrolling, sorry. We have a lot of initiatives and resources for the community. We have the Power Platform and community videos where we post all of our calls for you to watch. So if you can't make one, you can always watch it after, including this one. You can join our LinkedIn group for discussions about the community itself. We have a lot of open source initiatives for SPFx, JSON formats, which you can find at github.com/PnP, Office Dev, SharePoint, and Microsoft Graph. We also have a lot of community samples built by all of you. You can reach us at aka.ms/community/samples if you're looking for some inspiration or just to see how others build solutions in the community. All of this can be found at aka.ms/community/home. As always, we have this call. So the Microsoft and Power Platform community calls, they happen monthly and every other week. Be sure to check all of those out. We are on break. We will be back August 22nd. You can reach the invite at aka.ms/community/calls. All right, so the next call is on this 22nd of August. As always, we are looking for speakers. So if you're interested in speaking at any of our calls, please reach out. We do have a form where you can request to demo a solution you have built. If you have concerns about presenting, you can speak with us. We will walk you through your first time, answer any questions you might have, and make sure that your experience as you present on this call is a enjoyable one for you. And as always, everyone is welcome. Right, this is you, David.
It is, Beau. Thank you. Absolutely. That's okay. All right, friends. So we are spinning back up our Sharing is Caring initiative. This is a program that's providing hands-on guidance for y'all. What does that mean? It means that we're going to meet together in Teams calls. They're going to be open to everyone in the community. And we're going to learn together. Learn things like how to submit a pull request in GitHub, what do commits mean, how can you get more involved in utilizing all these resources and tools that are freely available for you to increase your exposure to all the amazing technology that we use. They are safe space, which means they are not recorded, so you can feel free to come and ask any and all questions. So we've got them spinning back up. We're now utilizing the webinar for Teams feature. So as soon as you sign up, you get an invite, reminders. It's really awesome. Go check out the latest schedule at aka.ms/sharingiscaring and reach out if you have any questions. Now, if we move to the next slide, once you do contribute to this community, we want to recognize you. So we've been seeing all those fantastic badges being shared on LinkedIn and added to profiles, shared on Twitter, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter. Well, we've got more coming soon. We just upped our subscription with them. We're working on some thematic, exciting themes. Thematic themes, is that from the Department of Redundancy Department, I think. And we are excited to show them to you. So we know we got Hacktoberfest coming up, and we got a couple of things in our pocket, Season of Getting, and some new ones that have fun with the community. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be sharing that out soon. Do need you to opt in, aka.ms/community/recognition. Absolutely no cost. We cover everything for you, and let us know if you have any questions. Beau, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Now with our updates for the latest updates on SharePoint framework from Microsoft Engineering, Vesa.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. David, I have to comment quickly. It's horrifying that you start already talking about October. I know that in LA, the difference between August and October is not massive, but in Finland, it's pretty massive. So
it's like half a degree in LA, I guess, right?
Exactly.
We're almost
exactly. There. Yes, precisely. Anyway, on the SharePoint Framework side, SharePoint Framework 1.18 public preview is out. Currently, the latest version is beta 3, which was released on the 1st of August. What's going to happen next? Let's go to the following slide actually before we go there and do the summary on there. On 1.18, the main focus area will be new layouts and new options on the Viva connection. So based on customer and partner feedback, we are giving you more and more flexibility related on the Viva connection for frontline worker targeted experiences, and of course through the mobile devices. Let's go to the following slide. In overall, the adoption is skyrocketing still. It's looking really, really good. So just letting you know, this is kind of a slide for obviously for Microsoft internal people, but it's a safe bet to bid on and build stuff on SharePoint Framework. It's not going to go away. We're again hitting one of the major milestones on the growth within upcoming weeks, which is really, really cool. Looking awesome. Now, in the roadmap, 1.18 beta 3, as said, was released in the 1st of August. We're looking into releasing beta 4 probably next week, and then a release candidate pretty fast after that, and then 2 weeks from the release candidate, a GA. So that's going to be roughly in September as a overall time frame perspective. And in there, that's going to focus on the new template options for your connection. There's Fluent UI v8, which is now the default for new projects. The API support for dark mode in Viva Connection Mobile is going to be included there. A few other adjustments and technical stack improvements. And that's the key point in 1.18, as said, coming in roughly mid-September. 1.17.4 is the latest version for production usage, and not going to cover what was in 1.17. Let's jump forward on the open source projects. Thank you, Beau.
Awesome. So yeah, so all of the updates of our PnP community, or Microsoft 365 Empower Platform community, open source projects. We'll start with PnPjs. I'll do this update. So we had no significant updates in the last couple of weeks. We have shifted our deployments to Mondays now rather than at the end of the week. So we just have some documentation updates right now. We're currently working on version 4 of PnPjs. We have an issue there, 2678. If you want to add some of your own comments about what you would like to see in version 4 as we are building it out, please do. And then we will be adding a new nightly build for version 4 as well. So if you want to check and see what we're currently doing, you can do so as well. And then we still have our nightly v3 builds. All right, up next for Microsoft 365 CLI, Gary. When creating service principles, additions for planner, power apps, new commands for support of 1.18 for SPFx. They've added a new command for Teams to add a member to a chat. V7 is in development right now, scheduled to be deployed in September. If you want to use CLI for 365, you can install and run v6.110 using standard npm installs. As always, join our community at aka.ms/CLI-M365-Discord. Is Gary still out? Yes. All right. So we'll just keep talking on Microsoft 365 developer Proxy. It is a way to simulate API errors, API behaviors, and mock your API responses. It's a very helpful tool for anyone doing development. You can reach that at aka.ms/m365/proxy. All right, and then we also have reusable controls, and I think Alex is out today as well. So there was, in the last month, release 3.15, which added a new term set navigation control, enhancements for dynamic form, folder explorer, and taxonomy picker, and more. Next slide, Viva Connections Toolkit. Adam.
Yeah, I'll take it. So Viva Connections Toolkit is a VS Code extension created by the community and together with Microsoft for the community. And its aim is to boost your productivity in SPFx area in developing SPFx solutions. So there are actions like upgrade, validating, creating new project from scratch, and also based on an existing PnP sample. So if you contributed in some SPFx web part extension or ACE samples gallery, then you all rock. Thank you very much, because you also helped to improve this VS Code extension as well. We are already working on the V2, and we have released v.1.1.2 pre-release, where you can check out already what was added. So, for example, we added a rename SPFx action and code for example, code snippets to help you coding your SPFx solution. We are still working on a feature which will allow you to set up a CI/CD pipeline using GitHub CLI for Microsoft 365 GitHub Actions, and granting project permissions. Be sure to give it a try. You can install it directly from VS Code extension store, and please provide feedback. Happy coding. Okay, back to you.
Awesome, thanks, Adam. Next up, we have updates on the PnP modern search. So there was a release a couple days ago, added support or bug fixes for multi-language, and there was a regression with filters in trying to preset filters through the URL. So that was fixed in 4.9.2, and you can reach those releases within that repository. And now we have PnP samples, and our next speaker is Hugo. Hugo, still, are you back?
Hugo is here.
There
he goes.
I am back. Thank you. Thank you, Beau. Our SPFX samples have been combined into a single URL. You can go to aka.ms SPFX-web parts. You can still go to the old SPFX extensions as well, but we've combined the web parts and extensions into a single sample browser. The latest updates are a web part report update by Amory. We have a new web part called Using Azure OpenAI Connectors API by Luis Mañez, a Flow dashboard by Nishan Kalak, an OpenAI Azure DevOps bot by Ejaz, and an update to our new Transport for London status, which is an extension by Anoop. Thank you, everyone, for your cool contributions, and we welcome new contributions. And let's pass it back to David for Adaptive Card Extensions.
Actually, it's going to be Derek.
That's going to be me.
Fine then.
Yeah.
Just another D.
Yep. So we don't have any new samples right now, but if you are currently working on adaptive card extensions, if you're doing anything with the latest beta release, we want to have them. So please, aka.ms/spfx-aces to submit, and Anoop and I will do our best to get those PRs processed and out there.
Awesome. Thanks, David, or Derek. Gosh, Hugo. All right. Now it's time for optional picture time. So make sure to turn on your cameras, provide proof you were here. Let everyone know that you're saying hi. Get those hands up. Get that hair done.
And give me 1 second, setting up things. It always happens so fast. All of a sudden, we're on that slide. So let's wait a few more seconds before we start recording. We still have a few seats on the room left. I think we'll get a few more, maybe a few more, maybe. Oh, there we go. There we go, a few more. Getting there. I will put the recording on and let's get a GIF animation out of that. So thank you everybody for joining once again. Awesome to have you on a call. Hopefully we will see you later on this year and next year, obviously in the conferences in person, potentially, who knows, but we'll keep on doing this community calls as well. Thanks everybody. Awesome to have you here. Excellent. Let's go to the demos of today. Brilliant.
Awesome. So we have a lot of great demos. First, we'll start out with Daniel Turley showing off the Accelerator services framework.
Daniel, you're muted, by the way.
Thank you, Beau. Yes. Hi, my name is Dan Turley, and I'm a full-stack developer at Avanade. I've been working with SharePoint for over 10 years, starting with SharePoint 2010. Most recently as part of the Productivity Studio, utilizing SharePoint framework to build business apps. Today, I will be showing you the services framework and the common services that are part of our SPFx solution accelerator. But as always, first, a quick overview of that accelerator. It's a set of patterns, reusable code, components, and tools I created for building business apps on the SharePoint platform. It has evolved over the last 6 years, and we have used it in the Productivity Studio to build a dozen business apps over that time. The accelerator is open source, and we have published a complete app to demonstrate its features. The SharePoint framework sample is named React Rhythm of Business Calendar. The accelerator has the following high-level features. We have guidelines for the solution structure to organize your domain model, services, components, and schema. We have a robust entity domain model with features like change tracking, validation, and relationships. There's also a services framework with provided services for SharePoint list data, time zones, and users and groups, and more. And this is what we'll be talking about in detail today. We also have dynamic provisioning of SharePoint lists for app setup and upgrade experiences. There are React components for view edit panels and dialogues, asynchronous data, live update controls, and more. We also have tooling to support development teams and environments. And last but not least, live update ensures your users are always collaborating with their latest data. Let me start with an overview of the services framework. We have several ready-to-use services, which I'll go through on the next slide, and of course the ability to create custom services, which I'll walk through towards the end of this session. We have a service manager class, which gets created very early on when your app starts. We pass it the list of services that the app needs, and it ensures each of those services gets initialized, respecting any dependencies. For example, you can declare that your custom service depends on some other services, and each of those other services will be initialized first, in parallel if possible. Your services can actually use those other services during its own initialization. And of course, the initialization is asynchronous. Under the hood, the service manager uses service scope, which is the standard way of registering and consuming services in SPFx. However, we add some additional features on top, like the initialization and the dependency capabilities. Services can be consumed in several ways. The first is from another service. You can have the dependent service injected into the constructor. And from your React hooks, you can either have the services injected through props, or you can access them with hooks. All of these examples along the bottom, which I know are a little small to read, they're examples of consuming our directory service in order to access the current user. The SPFx Solution Accelerator includes several ready-to-use services. We have a developer service This one enables you to register custom helper scripts that you can then execute from the DevTools console in your browser. We also have a directory service, which handles everything to do with users and groups. The interface utilizes our common user class so that everything is compatible with your entity domain model and our common components like the user picker. This service exposes the current user and their permission level for the site. It enables you to resolve accounts, search for people, and ensure they are added to the site's user information list. All of these utilize the PnPjs library along with caching and batching for efficiency. For groups, it helps you with retrieving the well-known owners and members and visitors groups for your site, as well as custom groups by title or by ID. It retrieves the metadata about the groups as well as the membership and enables you to make changes and updates to the group's metadata and its memberships. Next is the domain isolation service. So domain isolation is a feature in SPFx where your web part runs in a different domain inside an iframe on the page. And that is so that you can have extra permissions that you might want to isolate to your web part's code and not expose to the rest of the page. So this service helps with translating URLs between the main tenant domain and the isolated domain. It can also retrieve the list item for the current page, which is useful if you want to dynamically configure the permissions for the page where your app is running. It can also help you with constructing the site's composite ID, which is needed for certain graph calls. So all of these things are easy to do from a normal web part, but there are challenges once you enable domain isolation. Next up, the live update service handles the subscriptions to lists so that we get notified when items are added, updated, or deleted, and it manages a related cache, which supports faster app initialization. Then we have the SharePoint service, which handles loading and persisting list item data, as well as configuring item level permissions, and it can do a few other things related to lists and libraries. And lastly, the time zone service helps with mapping between SharePoint time zones and Moment.js time zones, as well as listing the available time zones on your site and getting your site's configured time zone. I want to show you the developer service in a little more detail. Like the other services, you can access this one from within a custom service or from a React component. And you can register custom functions that you can then invoke globally from the DevTools console. So in this example code, this is a class for a custom service in our app. The constructor is consuming the developer service, and below that is a private object where I've defined a custom function named obliterate. This function is accessible via a dev field that is added to the window object. So you can access them globally, but only if the code is running in the workbench page, or if you add isDev equals true in the query string of your URL. Notice the screenshot on the right. If I were to open a workbench page and add the web part that uses this service, I can then go to the console and type in dev.schema.obliterate and execute the function that I registered from within with the developer service. So I found this to be useful if you need to put your app in a specific state or to execute a specific command where you might not have any UI to action it. So for example, we might have a service like this one, which is responsible for retrieving user settings and configuration and coordinating first run experience. So on first run, let's say we're using the schema provisioner to automatically create lists on the site. But if you want to test the first run experience again by quickly deleting all those lists, you can have a function like this one that a developer can run by simply typing in dev schema obliterate in the console. And another use case that I really like is around creating sample data. So imagine you're trying to develop some functionality, but when you run your app for the first time on a new site, or maybe you deleted all your lists because you needed to make a change to your schema. And now you don't have any data to work with for testing your feature. So I like to create a dev script that I can run to instantly create a bunch of sample data. Okay, let's talk about how to build a custom service. Let's take the events service from the Rhythm of Business calendar app. The first thing you would want to do is create a folder for the service under the services folder where we put all of the files for the service. Choosing a short name is ideal. Here we're just calling it events. The two important files to call out in this folder are the events service descriptor and the online events service. The descriptor file will contain several important declarations for the service, while the online events service file will contain the implementation of the service for the SharePoint Online environment. Let me briefly mention that our services framework enables you to have several implementations of your service, which are chosen at runtime depending on the environment, such as modern SharePoint or classic SharePoint, or when you run unit tests. There used to be an environment for the local workbench, but we removed that when the local workbench was deprecated. And I also suspect that usage of classic SharePoint is very low. All right, let's look at the descriptor file. So there are several things that we'll need to define. The first is a symbol. Symbols in JavaScript are primitives that are used to create completely unique identifiers. This serves as the identifier for our service. Next, we'll define an interface for our service. This has methods to retrieve events, as well as add and persist events, and other business logic, like enabling the user to add this event to their Outlook calendar, or generating a deep link to the event. The kind of business logic the developers often put directly in the UI layer, but can really benefit from being separated out into a services layer. Then we'll want to define some helpers for consuming this service. This is how you would define a React hook. And lastly, we create a descriptor object. This object ties all of the pieces together. It takes the symbol we created, the interface we defined, any dependencies this service has, and the various implementations of this service. And this descriptor object is what we'll pass to the service manager during startup of the app. All right, let's take a look at how we would implement the events service. So here we are defining a class that implements the interface we previously defined in the descriptor file. Next, we'll define a constructor if the service has any dependencies we need to consume. The service happens to have a lot of dependencies. You might notice the first one there is the context. That's the context from the web part, and it's always consumable through the services framework. So you can access the page context or the dynamic data provider or any of the clients and factories. This also provides the context if you're building an extension as opposed to a web part. And you might notice the Teams.js below the context. That provides access to the Teams SDK if you're running in Teams. You'll probably want to store these dependencies in a class level field for later use. Then we'll write the initialize method. This can run asynchronously, as I mentioned, and because we listed all of those other services as dependencies, we can actually use their full functionality if needed while initializing this service, because the service manager will have made sure that they were all initialized first. And the final part is to implement all the other methods that we defined on our interface. So that's the anatomy of a custom service in the SPFx Solution Accelerator's services framework. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much, and back to you, Beau.
Awesome, Daniel. Thank you so much. Great demo as always. We always love to see all these updates coming through this framework. Next up, we have Rish on Invoice Generator web part.
So about me, I'm Rishabh Shukla, based in Canada, working as a M365 developer and consultant. You can reach me at my LinkedIn handle. I'm sharing right now. So why I developed this application? So obviously I wanted to be part of this awesome community. So I wanted to put my sample in there and notice that it's a huge list. So obviously you have to come up with something which is not there and kind of still using the same um, technologies and options available to develop SPFX web part. So this invoice generator is gonna help user to create invoices. This is still a very basic invoice generator web part, but it gives the option to select different clients and customer. It gives the option to add the items within the app. So it's something which dynamically you can just keep adding the items, and then based on the tags which you can set from the web part property, it will add that percentage, and eventually I try to include the PDF version as well, because people prefer to send the PDF version through emails, and also. The reason why I kind of also felt this could be an option which we should have is I noticed still people use Excel or kind of Outlook within Outlook table format to generate the invoice. So like I said, it allows user to create different invoices. It gives the option to add the items using add button, calculate total tax and total amount. It gives the option to generate PDF, and I'm using React PDF package to generate that, and it gives the option to add the customer or client through a SharePoint list. Also, I wanted to really use PnPjs because it's just there are different ways to connect. But as a developer, I go on to these samples and sometimes look for things like how to create a PDF version of something and in the or how to connect a SharePoint list or library. So it's just it's not like maybe you might not use Invoice Generator as an app, but it could be like we can use for different options. That's how I go to different sample and look for sample code which I use for different applications. So I'm going to jump into the application demo as well, and eventually into the VS Code as well. So here, this is how the application looks. You can see on the top there's a drop down. So right now I have a couple of customers already added in SharePoint list, and using the drop down is just adding those customer name at build to location. Again, this is all I came up with all the requirements. The requirements could be different, and based on that, you can always update this application. And your company name is something which like you are from, you work for that company, so you can update that through web part properties because your company will not change usually. So you can just update once and it will always pop up there. But with the drop down, you can keep changing your customer name. Invoice number is something which is incremental. Amount will be updated based on the item you keep adding to the invoice. And then tax is something which also I placed in web part properties because it's once it's set, it's not going to change. But if you're working for different companies in different geolocation, if for different countries, then you can always go and change in the web part properties for the taxes. And at the bottom, we have a download invoice button, which is something. This is how it looks once we download the PDF version, and it's nothing. Just kind of I have created a component specifically for this, and using React PDF package, which kind of helped me to get this version, PDF version. So if I go to the demo, this is something I have already configured, but I'll also cover quickly how we can configure the application. So right now I have two companies here, and these two companies are coming from this list. So I have Microsoft and the location, and let's do SharePoint and the location here, and that's how we can see that there are two companies showing up in this drop down. If I go to web part properties, like I said, there's invoice list. I have the option to pick the logo, so ended up picking up a stock image here. And then if you don't have a list already configured, that gives you the option to create a new list. What it does, it just create these columns for you. It will be empty, obviously, so we have to go and fill up these items. And then this is where whatever we type. So if I just say my company, obviously things will change. So this is where you can put your company and your address. I'm in Toronto, so there's 13%. So we can make changes to 15 and things will get updated. So like I said, we can update the items here. I'm just coming up with some random tasks. So if it took me like 20 hours, for example, and I'm charging $150 per hour, that's gonna be added in the item, and then I'll add another item. And you can see that things will get updated, like I said, based on what percentage you select. And when I generate the PDF, it generates this and downloads a file. And this is how it looks. Things can get better because this was sample, so still there are, we can make this more better in terms of look and feel. Now, if I jump into to the code, so first I'll start with the web part PS file. So this is where I have the controls, and I'm using property control. So we have this picker where we can select the logo. So if I jump back to this application again, this is where this logo part comes in. So I can just select any image and this will change, right? So this is that that control is doing, and then we have toggle, and this is where I'm kind of capturing the creation of a list, which I'm gonna show just after this. And this is where I'm getting all the list from that particular site where you are in. So obviously we are targeting to invoice list, and that's it. Quickly, I'll go to invoice service. So this is where I'm this is for specifically for the drop down. So I'm getting get invoice. There's a method which kind of getting that drop down working. Then we have this create list method, which is nothing but generating that list for you if you don't have that list. And this get list is actually to check if that list is there or not. Again, list if the list is existing, it won't create that same list again with the same name. So this is pretty basic service here. I'll switch back to the start of the application. So once you add, it will give you this placeholder where you kind of configure the web part. Because this particular site, HR Live, doesn't have any invoice lists, so I'll just create one list here, and I'll call it invoices. And once means the experience, we can make it better. Obviously, right now I haven't worked on that part, but here you can see the list is created with those columns, and I can just add the company name and the address, and save this record. And when I add this list here, it starts popping up, and obviously we have the option to add the logo. So I'll just quickly add that, and as you type your company name, it will start placing as well if you need that. And then this is where you kind of set the percentage. Also, it's kind of getting the theme of what the current web theme of your current site collection, so which you are using in that particular site collection. So now, this is something I already covered, but just to show again, and it will generate the PDF for you. So I have categorized into 4 components. First, after the web part where we kind of create this invoice generator. So this is where I'm talking to the service, getting the get invoice method to get the invoices. Also, these are the methods which I have used to calculate the tax or deleting the item, all that which you can see here. So we can delete the item as well. And this is the PDF generation method where I'm using this PDF generator component, which is nothing but I'm using, like I said, I'm using React PDF package, and there is a CSS file. Means obviously we have to design how it should look. We create a document component, and then kind of pretty much design our invoices. Also, if I go further down, you can see this is the placeholder where I started out the application, then checking if there are items, and then the app loads up. We start with a drop down. There's this invoice header. So this part is part of invoice header. Add item is another component which I have separated out. Then we have the lower part where I'm kind of calculating all the this tax and subtotal and total, and then the 4th component is specifically for download invoice PDF. So that's how I have categorized it. It's pretty basic in terms of what I'm doing here, and then I have added some basic validation. If you don't have any item, it doesn't let you generate the PDF. So it's kind of says please add the item to your invoice before generating a PDF. So I think that's it. These are pretty straightforward components to understand. So if you have any question, please reach out to me or post a question on Teams chat, and I'll try to answer them. Thank you.
Awesome. Great demo. There's you definitely have questions in the chat. But that was a really cool solution you built there. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Ejaz Hussain to talk about DevOps and AI and SPFx.
Hey, thanks. Hi, everybody. Let me share my screen. So let me know when you guys can see my screen and presentation.
We can see it.
Right, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Ejaz Hussain. I'm a developer architect in a company called Content+Cloud. We're based in UK. Here's my contact details in LinkedIn or Twitter. Please get in touch if you have any questions. So today we're talking about a SPFx web part, and what I build is so I wanted to basically see how can we use OpenAI into our SPFx web part. So one of the case or the idea was to basically we can ask the question in our natural language and see if we use the help of OpenAI, we get the response we wanted from our. It could be any AI. Could from our APIs. Could be Azure DevOps API. Could be Graph API. So the idea is to basically you ask your question in natural language. You don't have to basically click on the button or specific sending command to your API. Let's use the API to basically give you the parameters to call your function. That's what we're talking about today. So now, if you go next, so I used in this sample, I used the OpenAI function calling feature to determine the user request and intention, and then once we know what user wanted, and that's we're gonna using this OpenAI function calling feature to determine that, then we can use those response from the OpenAI, and then gonna call our own API could be, in this sample, I'm calling Azure DevOps API. So another thing we're doing is in terms of some tasks I'm doing in this sample, I'm asking for some recent tasks, I'm asking for bugs, I'm asking for give me some commits, recent commits into a specific project, and we're doing some natural language processing of the user query. So what is, before we get into the Jam, so we look into what is function calling feature. So function calling feature is basically the ability for these models to understand and generate JSON object for a specific function call based on the user query. So it's same. So you basically, like, for example, you imagine you want to say, hey, who are my top customers, kind of thing. So once you pass this request to OpenAI send you the look into this request, send you some parameters, if you're able to generate some parameters, and say, and if based on the the functions you have defined as a part of your prompts, and then from there OpenAI will understand which function in your API you wanted to call and what are the parameters are. So, and then once you understand, okay, once your system understand that this is your function, is a required function, then you can make a normal API request to get your data. So we'll look into more detail in a minute. So at the end, what it does is basically, once you make your API request, then you can again call the OpenAI again. If you have a, for example, the API send back a large amount of data or a huge text, then you can still use Open API part of that flow to further summarize that the data before you go back to the user. So if you look at this, how to use this function calling feature, so there are 5 steps. One, call OpenAI with user query. So we call the model, we pass the query, and this and we also pass the function parameters, which we're going to define beforehand, and then model will generate a JSON kind of object, because we are passing our functions, API functions parameters as well, or the definitions. Then the OpenAI will basically, based on your the definitions you are passing, it will send you a JSON object saying, hey, I know this is the function in your API you wanted to call, and here's the parameter which I extracted from the user request. Now, and then once you got that, you just basically use that pass JSON function and call your function. So once you got that JSON object, you basically extract those parameters from the response and call your API. In this case, I'm calling a DevOps API. And then if needed, that's optional. You have 2 options. Either if you still feel the response from my API is still quite large and you still want to summarize by the OpenAI, you're still going to go ahead and make another request with the response, and then the OpenAI will also summarize again, and then you go back to the user. So that's basically 5-step function when we're using the function calling feature in OpenAI. So let's look into the demo. Right, so I have this DevOps project, which is a one organization, which is Ejaz Hussain, and then I have a project called O3C, and then within O3C, I've got a couple of repos, so O3C SPFx web parts, and some other repos as well. So if I go and refresh this, let me just refresh this just quickly, and if you noticed, because I already configured this, my DevOps organization is auto-selected as Ejaz Hussain, but if you edit this, then you will see a drop-down. You might have like multiple organizations configured in DevOps, so you will see in drop-down here, and then you can select which one you wanted to basically use in that sample. And I think the sample which I've used in the pull request, you will also see another field here for the OpenAI key as well, so you can configure here in the property pane. So let's ask some question to the DevOps and see if we can get some answers. So first of all, I'm going to ask this question, say, show me all tasks assigned to me in O3C project, because this is where the key is. It's going to translate this into it's going to generate some JSON object, the OpenAI, and then it's going to give me, hey, I think you're looking for your assigned task, and this is the project in your organization. So he's going to basically extract those parameters and give me, this is the function you want to call with these parameters, and then I'm going to go ahead and call the parameters, and then I'll return back to the user. And this is where basically, your interface you could build with any way you like. So if you click on it, it takes you to the task in the DevOps, and then if let's some other task in there. So I say, show me bugs assigned to me in some. So if you're looking for a bug, it's gonna give you different parameters. So I'm gonna call a different API endpoint and pull back some bugs assigned to me. And then if you're looking for some recent commits, let's first give me some recent commits. And in this case, if you look at the question, I'm asking you, give me the commits, but give me, because you have to specify which repo you want commit from, right? So this is the repo I want commit from, and this is the O3. So your question has to be specific because this is based on your question and based on the parameters you passed is going to make judgment which function you want, API function you should call, and here is the parameter. So as soon as it passes, it's going to basically bring me in this repo all these the recent commit. Basically, you can see I've added 42 minutes ago, I've added this commit, etc. So if I click on probably here, so it takes me to that particular commit, and you can see the changes and etc. Right. So I think there's another one I've added is, let's see, I don't know what's the response going to, but let's add some random question. What's the weather like in London today? I was thinking. Right. So I can only help you with the task bug related project. I don't have information about the weather in London. So this is like, I already have something like, if you don't get if you get random questions, so please give this source of answer, like, because you're only trained to respond with the bugs task and the commit, so you don't have information in this one. So let me go back to the quickly code. So in here, we first of all go to so you see here, I have another field which I was talking about. So you will have a OpenAI key. So you can define in there in your property pane, and this is the property pane async dropdown for the organization. So this will be up. If you go here, it will be auto-populated based on your permissions, so that you can choose which organization you wanted to use. And if you go to the main here, so let me go back to. So we have a React use hook, which is basically called the OpenAI. So if someone send me a message, if I have so then what's going to happen is I'm going to call this guy, and this calling the two things. One, the message I've received, and then the function. So let me take you to the function before I go to the message. So this is the constant we're defining. So this is the key thing here. Basically, I'm defining my parameters. So basically, this is the get assigned task is a function I wanted, and the parameters are what it does. Get all the active tasks assigned to me, and then object which I'm passing. This is the project name. I need the project name as a parameter, so you can define any parameters you like, and then a description of each parameters basically. And then another function I've got get assigned bugs and description and the parameters you needed. You need to define what do you need to call the API. So you need to define those parameters here. And then what OpenAPI will do is try to extract that information from the message which user has entered. And then based on the selection is going to make, you might have like a huge list of functions. And then he's going to say, use this function, and here are the parameters. So that's what I'm doing. I'm passing this to call OpenAI hook and the message user has entered. And once I get the response, I'm going to go and process the response. So in response, I'm checking. So the stop is the one which is the last one. So if the case is stopped, that means he doesn't have anything else. So at this point, you can go back to user and show to the message. Or, which is when I was saying is optional, because you don't have to summarize the result all the time. You can basically go back to user at any point you like. So for example, if this is a function call, I'm extracting the name of the function I wanted, what OpenAI spitting out, all the argument of the function based off the user request, the query. And then once I know what function name he's given me based on the constant I've provided. So in here, let's suppose get assigned task. So if I go inside, I'm calling this function call function, passing the name arguments, and then if you what's inside going here. So here I'm doing get assigned task. I'm taking the function argument. You could see because I'm expecting the project name here in this. That's what I define as a parameter. So if I got the project name from the OpenAI, I'm calling my API get assigned task, and all you're doing is basically passing my organization name and the project, and getting my task from the DevOps. The same goes with the other one. So if I've called this function bugs or commits, based on that, it's going to go and grab the result from the DevOps API. So if I go back to here, so once I've got the results, and then I can simply show function result, I can simply show DevOps task result, so I can break at this point. I don't have to kind of go into the loop again. So I can go show DevOps task, and then set the messages, which is the type of array I'm using, or the chat messages. And once all the chat messages are there, updated chat messages, I'm using there is a this is a API, the React check element. So for all the chat component, which the list, chat list, and etc., all built by React check element. So I'm passing all the messages to that component, and then it's basically rendering that for me. That's all from my side. So if you have any question, please let me know.
That's super cool demo again. Great use of AI for sure. I'll definitely check out that demo myself. All right, thanks everyone for the samples today. Let me, if I use my mouse, there we go. Applause, applause, applause. We would love your feedback about these calls. So if you want to fill out a quick form for aka.ms/community/calls/feedback, which Dave just posted in the chat, let us know how we are doing and how we can improve our content. Additionally, we do have an official Discord server now where you can come and share information, get access to all of our community calls as well, and have some back and forth discussions throughout the day. You can reach that at aka.ms/community/discord. And thank you everyone for attending. This recording will be available in 24 hours on our YouTube channel, which again, you can get at aka.ms/community/videos. And finally, follow us on Twitter or X at Microsoft 365 Dev and at Microsoft M365 PnP. Our next call is August 24th. And our next M365 Empower platform call, is that August 17th, David? Is that true? I thought it was 22nd.
Yeah. Is it
17th?
No, it's next week, a week from today.
Oh, awesome. August 17th. Once
That's
again,
the
thanks everyone.
Microsoft call on the 22nd, by the way.
Okay. My apologies. And finally, you can reach all of our calls at aka.ms/community/calls. Thanks again, and see you next time.